we started the webinar and it's being live streamed. Okay, yay. Okay. Oh, look at all the attendees here already. Okay, hello, audience members. We're going to give more audience members some time to filter in. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask some warm-up questions to the composers because I've been dying to ask them these. And then in about 4 minutes, we'll officially begin the event. So, let's see. Okay, so hello, Theresa, Juhi, and Midori. Okay, the first warm-up question I have. This is like me when I'm creating. I always want some like treat close to me. Is that the same for you? Do you have a favorite munchie or like a beverage that you have to have ready to like, it has to be there, so when the moment comes, you're like, I need this. Do you mind sharing what that is for you?
For me, I like herbal tea and almonds and maybe some chocolate.
Oh, wait. Oh, I like the chocolate part and tea. Get some tea right now. Thank you, Theresa. Juhi?
You know, I think there might be a lot in common here. So here's my green tea. Definitely chocolate.
Oh wait, we all have
sometimes seaweed.
Oh, see, the ones with they're like leaves and you like
or the ones from like the Japanese market where it's like the seaweed and the Rice Krispies and like the sesame all in a mix. I love them. They're great.
Yum. Oh, I feel like I need some of those right now. Thanks, Juhi. Midori, how about you?
Yes. So, chocolate for sure. Dark chocolate is good for the brain. So I tend to like brain foods. So I make a smoothie with avocado, blueberries, walnuts, with coconut water all blended in.
Can you make some for us now? That sounds delicious.
Absolutely.
You could ship it to us. Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. I feel like all these treats are necessary brain food. Okay, I'll ask one more question and then we'll get officially started. I like that because I always feel like, should I not be eating while I am trying really hard to get work done? But the food helps the work to be done, I think. That's in my opinion. Okay, last question before we officially begin. I've been reading a book about daily routines, and I'm curious to ask you about what is your routine before and after like a really phenomenal event? Like either you're performing or you have to like attend, you have to, like, it's something about you that you gotta be there and maybe part of the party. But what do you do before and after, kind of to help you prep and then decompress?
Okay, I'll go first. I usually give myself permission to like either take a little walk, preferably in nature, and then I'll go to like a bookstore and hang out for a moment because bookstores tend to calm me down and make me happy. And maybe go to a cafe and get a nice drink or something like that.
Nice. I like that. Thanks, Theresa. Oh, Juhi?
Well, it's similar for me, except I rarely get to do it. In theory, my ideal before is have a long hike or go for a run or something active. In practice, I'm usually running around so much before actually going to an event. That doesn't happen very much these days, but in theory, it's what would happen every time.
Oh, it happens all in here.
Exactly.
Great. Thanks so much, Juhi. And then Midori.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit different. Before an important event, including today's event, I do push-ups.
Oh.
And after the event, I revisit the event and all of the excitement that I went through.
Same here. I thought you were going to say more push-ups, and I was like, wow, that's super
Sometimes I do that.
More Congratulations. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Midori. Thank you all composers for indulging me in that fun warm-up session. Okay, so we are officially going to begin our very fantastic event. Thank you, everyone here, for being here and waiting. So without further ado, I'm going to make my opening statements. The composers will introduce themselves, and then we're going to plunge into the really fun activities. Okay, so hello everyone. I am very excited, as you can see, to welcome you to the third Realms of Courage Composers panel. I am Angela Hahn. I'm an artist, musician, and educator, and the facilitator of today's panel. And I have the honor of presenting three phenomenal composers. We have Theresa Calpotura here, Juhi Bansal, and Midori Larsen. Woohoo! Okay, so before we plunge in, I'd like to take a moment to give everyone here more context about this event. This composers panel is part of a larger project called Realms of Courage, celebrating Asian women composers, that amplifies composers who identify as Asian women through art inspired by their music and lived experiences. You can learn more about Realms of Courage by saving the link in the chat. Okay, so this project is funded by the San Francisco Arts Commission, otherwise known as the SFAC, and the Asian Pacific Islander Cultural Center, otherwise known as APIC. And these events, the composers panels, are presented by Angela Hahn Art LLC and APIC through this year's 25th Annual United States of Asian America Festival, Generations of Power. And this festival is also abbreviated to be called USAAF. So if you're curious to learn more about these incredible organizations, you can find, again, more info in the chat. Please save. And to learn more about the composers panels, there are 5 total, so we have like 2 more to go. You can also find a link in the chat. Okay, so some crucial shout outs here. Many thanks to the amazing administrators of APIC, Diana, TJ, Melanie, and Vinay, for your support in making these panels happen. Much gratitude as well to our wonderful events associate, Samara, who is working behind the scenes to ensure everything is flowing smoothly. And a huge shout out to the ASL interpreters we have here today, Rob and Kristen. Thank you so much for ensuring that these panels are accessible to our audiences. Thank you, Rob and Kristen, for being here today. And I also want to give lots of appreciation to Nicole, who has interpreted our panels number 1 and 2, and she will be here next time, for her time, energy, and heart that she spends in interpreting these events. Okay. So I want to acknowledge that I'm facilitating this Realms of Courage Composers panel on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. I recognize that I am immensely privileged to celebrate the creativity and stories of Asian women, the Realms of Courage composers, and of myself on this land that is stewarded by the Ramaytush Ohlone, and which they have stewarded for generations. So please see the link in the chat that will lead you to supporting the efforts of the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone, including land rematriation, ecological restoration, and upcoming arts and culture projects. Okay, so today we all have the chance to listen to these Realms of Courage composers and ask them your burning questions. So without further ado, I'd like to turn our attention to the composers. So, composers, are you ready to introduce yourselves? So we're going to, we can do, please introduce yourself with your name, where are you currently at, and also who are you as a composer, And what is the work? Can you describe like the work that you do? And then I think what we'll do, Theresa, Juhi, and Midori in that order.
Great. So I'm Theresa Calpotura, and I live here in San Francisco, California. And my music, or in my music, I should say, I like to explore interesting ways of reflecting my mixed heritage as a person. My dad is originally from the Philippines, and he immigrated to the US at the end of 1979. And my mother was born in the US, and she's of English, German, Jewish, Scottish, and Irish descent. So I really enjoy making, interesting combinations from exploring the different aspects of my background.
Woohoo! Teresa, do you mind including also a link to a composition you like everyone to listen to? And you can tell us what that piece is. That would also be awesome.
Oh, sure. So the link I'll provide is a link to a song I wrote called Princess. And it's actually based on the Filipino version of the Ramayana. And in it, the sort of Filipino version of Sinta, she's being chased by this demon king, but she kind of saves herself despite earthquakes and vines tangling around her ankles. And it's also based on a dance called Singkil. So I'll put it in the chat for you.
Yes, thank you, Teresa. And I've listened to that because I like play it on replay. Like in the morning when I need like a empowerment boost. So thank you.
Yeah.
And we're going to head over to Juhi.
Hey, hi everybody. I'm Juhi Bansal. I'm a composer right now in Los Angeles, but originally I was born in India and then grew up in Hong Kong. And my music is kind of sort of like Theresa, I think, kind of pulling a lot of inspiration from the music of these different places, from Hindustani music and some of the music I got to know while I was in Hong Kong. And I tend to write a lot of music that's inspired by either wild places and wilderness. Theresa, we were talking about, hiking for concerts or like getting out in nature. Wild places, music that is about women's stories that I find really powerful and fascinating. And also music that's about bringing together different like cultural elements and celebrating them, because that's so much a part of who I am. The link I'll put in the chat for a piece I'd love for everybody to check out. It's called Waves of Change, and it's sort of it was commissioned during the pandemic as a digital project. So it's a video and it's music inspired by the story of the Bangladesh Girls Surf Club.
Thank you so much for that, Juhi. I definitely have shared your Waves of Change music and music video with my students, and love it. So audience, please do save that in the chat. And then Midori.
Hi, my name's Midori, and I live in New York City. So I write music to highlight my lived experiences as an Japanese immigrant woman living in New York City, also as a mother. And in my music, I write for Japanese and Western musical instruments to similar to what the other two were talking about, to express my multicultural identity. And so through my music, I seek to inspire other women and girls to pursue their passion and lead their own lives.
Thanks so much, Midori. And then, do you have a piece that you can talk a little bit about?
So the piece I would like to put link in a chat is called Departure, and it is about, as the name suggests, it's about me departing my home country, Japan, crossing the seas. I went on an airplane, but crossing many seas to come to this country, and it's about excitement mixed with anxiety, but very, very hopeful and lots of energy going forward. So that's the piece I'm going to put it in the chat.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, Midori. And actually, Compose, just as a little heads up, when putting your link into the chat, just make sure that you're selecting to everyone. Actually, if you don't mind, all 3 composers, just writing in the title and the link just one more time and copy and pasting it into the chat just one more time so that we can all save that. And Samara, if it's also possible to copy and paste the links that the composers share here on the Zoom to the YouTube, that would be also on point amazing. Thank you. Okay, amazing. Let's just check. Okay, everyone, awesome. All right. Now, I'm so excited. Okay, we're going to move into our first activity. So this panel focuses on the theme of courage, right? Realms of courage, theme courage. And our first activity is, drumroll, called Spin the Wheel. So how are we going to play this game? So in just a moment, Samara, we're going to pull up an image of the spin the wheel questions that relate to this theme of courage. Okay, and then I will read the questions out loud so everyone here will know what the questions will be. Just as a reminder, you won't need to remember the questions because Samara will put that into the chat. And then we're going to share the wheel. And then composers, it'll be up to you to say spin, and then the wheel will spin, and whatever pie slice the arrow lands on is the question you'll answer. So that means we're going to have 3 different questions today, 3 different answers. Okay, ready? All right, so we can pull up the image of the questions. Thank you very much. So number 1. When have you achieved the impossible? 2, can you describe a time in which you turned a mistake into magic? 3, when and how have you surprised yourself? 4, can you describe a time in which life asked you to step into a greater version of yourself? 4, no, I did 4. 5, how do you approach the unknown? Number 6 is, can you describe a time in which you created your own opportunity? Number 7 is, what are things unique to you that no one can take away? And finally, what motivates you to get up every day? And the live caption is blocking. Get up every day and continue chasing your hopes and dreams. Okay, now composers, these are questions in relation to you as a creator. So, who would like to go first? Actually, we're going to take down this image, and then we're going to pull up the wheel. Composers, did you decide who was going to go first? Who's going to go first? Yee. Okay, Theresa's going to go first. Awesome. Okay. And we're going to share the screen for the wheel. Now, we're using this wheel because it's fantastic. We do not endorse any ads or whatever you see here. We just don't endorse it. we are just realms of courage right here. Okay, so Theresa, whenever you're ready.
Okay, spin.
Whoa, it's number 4. Okay, number 4. The question is, give me 1 second. Okay, Theresa, as a composer or a creator, can you describe a time in which life asked you to step into a greater version of yourself?
Yes. Okay. Great question. I think Yes, I think the time I would have to pick would be when I had a mentor who made a lot of big change, or really was really inspiring to me. His name is Bayani Mendoza de Leon, and he taught me a lot about Filipino music, and he was really big inspiration. And we worked on an album together, and he ended up passing away a few years after that, and that was kind of a big hit for me as a person, a creator, and I think I had to sort of figure out how to stand on my own 2 feet again after his passing, because it's like I had this huge source of support in so many ways, and then suddenly he was gone. So it was really hard for a while. It was very difficult, but eventually it actually became, or his passing became an inspiration for a new project, and I actually started writing music largely because he passed away myself. So yeah, so that was a pretty big change for me.
Oh, that's remarkable. Do you mind saying the name of your mentor again, and the project that he ended up inspiring?
Oh, sure. So his name is Bayani Mendoza de Leon, and he is a Filipino composer, and who lived in the U.S. originally from the Philippines. And well, the specific project he inspired was an album of songs actually I wrote for this project called The Blue Hours. So it was the first time, I'd written some music before that, but it was the first time I was writing music using Filipino traditional inspiration instruments and things like that. Yeah. So.
I think Princess is on that album, right?
Yes, the second.
Woohoo! Connection. Oh, thank you so much, Theresa.
Yeah, no problem.
For your response. Okay, who's next?
I think it's me.
Yes. Okay. Thanks for signing up to be the next one, Juhi. We're going to share the wheel again, and Juhi, you have the power to say spin.
Amazing. Okay, the drama's building. Let's spin it.
Woohoo! Number 6 has been chosen. Okay, so let's see. Okay, and we're going to see. Oh, okay. Oh, this is perfect. Okay, so Juhi, as a creator, composer, can you describe a time in which you created your own opportunity?
Oh gosh, one single time. I hesitate only because I feel like that is really our entire lives as composers, as constantly and creators, is so much of doing exactly that, creating projects. One that comes to mind is, I remember this is right before the pandemic, LA Opera had approached me wanting to commission a piece that was, at the time they were doing this big citywide festival about the Orpheus legend, because they were about to premiere a new work by Matthew Aucoin, a new opera about the Orpheus story told from Eurydice, his wife's point of view. And they had approached me with this idea of just wanting to commission something somehow related to this. And at the time, I was splitting my personal time between teaching at a community college and also working freelance as a composer. And I remember thinking a couple of things. One was, why not take this idea of looking at the stars and constellations, and rather than always using this very Eurocentric kind of, we always talk about the Greek mythology, wouldn't it be fascinating if we took this story and we talked about Asian mythologies and Pacific Islander mythologies, and like kind of looking at the history of how different people have created art and stories and reflected on the stars. And I also thought, wouldn't it be cool to do it as kind of as a larger collaborative thing? So rather than just being LA Opera, we wound up turning into this, like, it was about 1.5 years of work, I think, in total. We got my community college, we had a bunch of students who were involved in singing in it. We had Caltech, the choirs were singing in it. We had community members, we had soloists from LA Opera. And it turned into this like big sort of really collaborative, really community-focused project that was all about, in its final form, it was like a stage cantata, basically, about the stories different cultures have told about the night sky. And I just, that's one I'm so excited about, because it started from a prompt for something that was a fairly traditional, normal sort of piece and turned into this much bigger thing that was music celebrating all sorts of different people from my local community.
Wow, what a magical answer. Oh, I love that. I love that you like I think it was like getting an assignment, right? And then turning it like, no, this is what I want to do, like what you wanted to do with it. And I totally hear you about, we do talk a lot about Greek and Roman mythology, but hey, there's so much like you said, Asian mythology in the world. And it's so good. So you definitely hit the nail on the head with the answer with that one. Thank you so much. And we now have Midori. So we're going to share the wheel again. And like with other composers, Midori, you get to decide when to hit spin.
Right. Do I get to see the wheel? Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. Spin.
Ooh. Number 2 has been selected. Okay, Midori, are you ready? Okay, number 2. As a creator, composer, can you describe a time in which you turned a mistake into magic?
Oh my goodness. That's my everyday life. I make all kinds of mistakes. Mistakes into magic. All right. So I thought when I was growing up, wait, let me back. So I thought when I decided to pursue music, I thought I made a mistake by not starting early. I was a college student. I really wanted to start studying music, but then I didn't grow up playing music. So I thought that was a huge mistake as a child, not playing music. But hey, I was really determined to do it, so I did it anyway. So I don't think it's a mistake. I keep thinking about that, because look, I wish I had started early, then this would be so much easier. But I think because of that, it made me who I am.
That's very inspiring. It really is. You can start anytime, right?
Exactly.
You start anytime. You have, I love that you have this dream, and that's. Thank you for sharing that, Midori.
Sure.
For all of you in the audience, this is a good motivating point. If you have a dream that you haven't started pursuing yet, it's never too late. Start now. Thank you, Midori. Thank you to all of the composers for playing Spin the Wheel. We're going to move on to our next activity. So whereas in Spin the Wheel, each of you received a different question, therefore different answers, for this activity, it's called Fill in the Blank Treasure Hunt Style. You're all going to get the same question. This time you can popcorn around, whoever wants to respond first. So you're going to get the same, well, not question, but like fill in the blank, and you're all going to respond to the same fill in the blank. You ready? And again, the sentences will be in the chat, so you don't have to be like, can you say that again? And forget. It'll be in the chat. Okay, so it's time for a treasure hunt. You're looking for blank. What is it that you're looking for? Anybody can go.
Inspiration?
Good. Inspiration. We got inspiration. Midori or Theresa?
A good chord.
Okay, Okay, a good chord for that composition, Midori. And then Theresa?
I was gonna say a good bookstore.
A good bookstore. Okay, we got inspiration, a good chord, a good bookstore. This is great. Okay, we got a good start. Okay, next, number 2 is you get to bring one person to guide you on your journey to finding this bookstore and this chord and inspiration. And so you get to bring one person to guide you on your journey. So you bring blank because of blank.
I guess I'll go if everybody's thinking. I'll bring my husband because we travel together a lot and I know that he can help me stay calm if things start going wrong.
Okay, husband. Great. To help you find inspiration. Love it. Theresa or Midori? Oh, Theresa?
Oh yeah, I think I'd probably bring a good friend who also loves books because they'll also be motivated to find a good bookstore.
That's true. A bookworm. A pair of bookworms. And then Midori?
So to find a good chord, I think I'll bring my daughter along with me.
Oh.
She's 9 years old and she is very creative. She's not a musician, but she's an artist. So she would approach from a different perspective to find a chord. So she wouldn't say, oh, use that chord. She would approach it like, oh, I really like this plant, or I really like the shape of the cloud.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
Yes.
I hope everyone you've mentioned is watching right now, so they're ready to go with you on this adventure. That's great. And audience members, you're welcome to answer fill in the blank too, to see like what your response would be. Okay, so the third sentence. You're adventuring happily, woohoo, on your journey, when suddenly you realize you're lost. You find your way again by blank.
I think I got the easy one there because you can't be lost when you're looking for inspiration, right? The whole point is you have to be lost to find your inspiration. So
that's a really good point. So I guess for you, Juhi, your intention is to get lost.
Exactly.
That's great. Okay, so we're aiming to be lost here. Okay, and then Midori or Theresa, what do? You're completely lost.
When I'm lost, I'll do more push-ups.
Okay, audience members,
When I can't think of that perfect chord, I do push-ups.
That's great. Earlier, Midori was saying you said before you go to an event or you do your push-ups to get your energy going. So same tactic here, Midori, right? You're lost. Time to do push-ups. Great. Thanks, Midori. And Theresa?
Let's see. Knowing me, I'd probably get more lost for quite a long time. And then hopefully eventually find someone who knows where they're going and ask them or consult a map.
I connect with that because once you're lost, I just get more lost and spin in more circles. That's I think Juhi and Theresa both should work together. And then you run into Midori and you all do push-ups together. That'd be great. Okay, next one. Okay, somehow you found your way, but you're confronted by a troll that tries to make you feel small. You defeat this troll by blank.
I think I would be thrilled if I was suddenly feeling small because in the hunt for inspiration, I'm like, wait, this is a new way to look at things, right?
Good perspective.
Exactly, totally different perspective. Thinking of whatever the troll says is like, this is not a weakness, me being small. This is just a different way of looking at things.
Oh, that's great. Now the troll would be stumped. They would be so stunned that they would just have to let you pass. I like that.
Right, I can just run between his feet and there's no problem.
I love that. Thanks. That's a lot of fun. Thank you, Juhi. Theresa, Midori? Yeah.
So, I would definitely play with the troll and
Wait,
become
wait.
friendly.
Like
Yeah.
play the piano?
I'll play with the troll.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you like make
Yeah.
friends.
Make friends, yeah, with the troll.
This is great.
Yeah, and especially with my daughter who loves the movie, trolls.
Oh yeah, your daughter's with you. Great. This is what a someone said push-up contest.
Exactly. Yeah, let's do a push-up contest with that troll. Yeah. There you go.
They're just like bloop, fall over. That's great. Thanks, Midori. Theresa, do you have one?
Yeah, I think, let's see. Well, I love the book Alice in Wonderland. So maybe I would find some like really nonsensical passage to just like keep reading at the troll to loses its like sense of, I don't know, wherewithal, and then falls over and then the troll's gone.
There is certainly one or two chapters that like it tells someone to then you're reading it and you're like, what's going on?
Exactly.
Oh, and then the troll gets like, ooh, dizzy. Yeah, none of the trolls can stand against all of the force and might of all you three composers. So that leads us to our final question is, yay, you've reached the treasure. We've reached the inspiration. You found your chord and you found your great bookstore. So you've reached your treasure, but now I would like to ask you, what do you treasure most about yourself as a composer?
I guess I'll go first for each of these. Let's say that I'm not afraid to get lost trying to find new sounds, new ideas, or new inspirations.
Oh wait, pardon. Okay. Part of my questions just disappeared, but no, that's a perfect answer. Thank you so much, Juhi. That's good advice to treasure too. I was thinking about that. Everyone write that down. Thank you. Midori or Theresa?
So, what do you treasure most about yourself as a composer? That I'm very different. I'm the one who likes to do push-ups when I get stuck and when I'm experiencing a writer's block, or go on stage before an important event. I'm very athletic, and yes, I'm very athletic. So I like to, I treasure that I have many different strengths.
Mm-hmm.
I'm musical, I'm very athletic, and I'm probably comical in a way.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, like more inspiration. Please write that down too, audience. It's like treasure, how you seek out the inspiration in the world, and also your differences. Thank you, Midori. And then, last but not least, Theresa.
I think I treasure the fact that, well, I take interest in learning new instruments, and kind of experimenting with them and incorporating them into my music. So, for instance, lately I've been trying to learn the kujapi with a cultural master in Maguindanao, and that's been really inspiring for me, and I'm really excited to try to incorporate that and what he's taught me overall into my music. So
yeah. Pushing boundaries. Do you mind describing a little bit of what the kujapi is?
Oh, sure. It's behind me. There's different versions, but the one I'm learning now is it's a 2-string boat lute, and has a drone string, and yes, and it's fretted, originally fretted with beeswax, and I believe a piece of a coconut shell on top of it. But it's really also been really special to learn because it's very much a oral tradition versus writing music down. So that's been a really different way for me to learn. That's really just kind of changing my brain around in the best ways. So
as far as we got a comment in the chat like, play for us. We will. You want to see Theresa before really any of the composers? Everything you said about yourself that you treasure about yourself, we also treasure. You got to follow these composers. So Theresa, Juhi, and Midori, they all have Instagram, Facebook, and their websites, newsletters. So yes. You should put on a performance for next event. Performance by all the composers. Well, thank you so much, composers, for playing that fun treasure hunt game. We have now reached our Q&A session. So audience members, this is your chance to ask your burning questions to Juhi, Midori, and Theresa. So to do this, everyone, if you look to like the right of your Zoom, and there's actually, I thought it was going to be right next to it. So it's on the right side, there should be a Q&A button. On the left side, there's a chat button. But if you look on the right side, there should be a Q&A button. If you press that, you will see your chance to ask your burning question. So you just type your question into the Q&A. And if you want to be anonymous, please note that there is an anonymous option. You just need to click the checkbox that's right below where you would type in your question, and then click submit. And we'll wait for the questions to pile in for the next minute or so. If we have more questions than we can get to today, we will figure out how to include those questions in future Realms of Courage programming. But do try to get your questions in now, because we've got a good chunk of time for the composers to respond to your curiosity. Okay. Let's see, and I'm just going to go in order, and then for the APIC team and Samara, if there are any questions on the YouTube side, you just stick it back into the chat on Zoom, and I'll make sure that happens. Okay, woohoo! All right, so, whoa, look at all these questions. Haha. Okay. I'm going to start now before we want to maximize our time. Okay, we have our first question from an attendee named Eliana. And Eliana asks, what life experience made you question your path the most? What a question. Woohoo. So, we can totally popcorn. Who would like to answer this question first? Maybe should I call names and be that person? Oh wait, elaboration on the question, says Eliana. Was there a point where you questioned, maybe I shouldn't follow this career, and then how did you overcome it? So that's like that's a perspective you can take on the question that was asked. Okay. Juhi, you started a lot. So Midori, do you mind if I bounce you first?
Start on this.
Okay.
Sure. So because I'm a mother, I always have to consider a healthy balance between my creative work and quality time with my daughter. So when I'm very busy trying to meet deadlines right before a concert or recording, I'm always constantly on the computer working, either on my compositions or I'm in a meeting with someone, and I do not have a lot of time with her. And she would she would come to me and say, I miss you, or I wish that you would have more time to play with me. So when that happens, I question my decision to become a composer. But then I do it. I became a composer and continue to write music and continue my creative work, despite the fact that I'm facing many different challenges, including being a mother, because I want to show her how important it is, even as a mother, to keep pursuing your passion. And I want her to see how it's done through my life.
Wow. Thank you, Midori. I'm sure she does see that. I'm sure your daughter does see that. Theresa, Juhi?
Sure. I think for myself, it was definitely at one point financially, I was definitely questioning if I could continue with, being in music in general. But I think I was, well, one, I didn't know what else I would want to do. And so I kind of just hung in there and stuck with it. And it turned out okay, fortunately, but it was really hard. I mean, for many years, I mean, it's not like I'm, rolling in the dough now, but at least it's a sustainable situation, so that's good. And yeah.
I mean, that's real talk. Like the composers, I mean, creators, we need funding. We need resources to do the amazing things that the amazing thing that we love to do. So real talk here. Real talk.
Oh, and one other thing I would add probably was that as a guitarist, it was also really difficult being a female and a person of color or mixed heritage. It's definitely a challenge to overcome because you receive a lot of challenges from other people.
Yes. Even more real talk. It's you're never handed anything, right? Hence the question about how, like, all the opportunities we have to create for ourselves, being people of color and creators of color. Thank you so much for that, Theresa. And Juhi?
So I think I had the opposite sort of experience from Theresa starting out, in that I've had a million other things that I wanted to do. Like I taught for a long time. I started my degree in computer science as well as music. I used to teach martial arts and be a wilderness survival instructor. So I go through phases. This is like a regular part of my work as a creative person, thinking this is getting too hard. I really should just quit and switch to something else. And I've just kind of over time come to a place where I've just accepted this is part of my process, and I love the work, and kind of it helps me to have a balance that I do all these other things now still, just like for fun or for enjoyment or time with family, but keeping the music and making opportunities, as we were talking about, because what Theresa said, I mean, the money is a real thing. Money is definitely a real thing. Kind of finding ways to balance all of that while still just being genuinely excited about the work. I think it's something I keep coming back to. I step out of the orbit a little bit, go do something else, and pull myself out of that space, and just always come back to it because I love the music.
Wow, we're as creators, we're juggling. Yes, another comment. You're all such Renaissance women. Oh yes. It is so remarkable, all the things that you do. Thank you, all three of you, for answering that question, and that also answered our follow-up question, which was there a point you questioned maybe you shouldn't follow this career, and how did you overcome it? So thank you for that question, Eliana, and thank you, composers, for answering. We've got an anonymous question here. How do push-ups stimulate your composing ability? And if you don't mind, I'm gonna broaden that question a little bit, and we could talk about definitely the push-ups. But other things that stimulate your creativity, you could talk about that too. Like what stimulates your creativity?
Okay, I'll go first to that question, answering that question. So when you get stuck, what you want to avoid is to be in that spot, the stuck spot. You have to somehow get out of that space and see yourself from different perspectives. And people do it in different ways. Taking walks, having a power smoothie, the one I talked about in the beginning with the avocado, blueberries, and walnuts. I do all those things too. And when you stimulate your body, your physical sensation builds up, then at least I'm out of that state of being stuck, right? At least I am breathing. At least I am not sitting in front of my computer, right? So that's why.
Nice. Changing perspective.
Changing perspectives and get your answers. Yes.
I feel like maybe I should do push-ups next time I go to
I actually have a feeling. Juhi and I probably have a lot in common. It sounds like she's very athletic as well.
Thank you, Midori. And then Theresa and Juhi, you could talk a little bit about like what helps you also get the juices flowing with the with creativity.
Okay. Well, I love visiting museums. That's like one of my number ones. I also like reading like 10 books at the same time. Of very different like categories and backgrounds. It's like really good way to cross-pollinate. Seeing other music performances and going on long bike rides. Well, long for me, which isn't that long, but going on bike rides. And I'd say gardening, because gardening is a really big inspiration for me, actually.
Marvelous.
Seeing something grow and seeing all the life that, kind of takes over in a garden that you planted is, and seeing something from seed to death and then regeneration is massively inspiring for me.
Magic. It's like magic. Theresa, could you share how many books you usually read within, I don't know, a year?
A year? I'd say not a ton. I'd say I lately have been averaging maybe like 65, but
that's not a ton at all.
But
65 books in a year.
But you go up to 80, and some people do like 100 books. I've never done 100 books, but maybe one day that'll be like a new goal sometime.
Well, to me, that's a ton of books. I don't know about anybody else, but I've got everyone's like, whoa, with the book. Thank you, Theresa. Juhi?
Well, I think for me, there's a couple of things. One, what Midori mentioned, this like needing to like clear your head and step away and find fresh perspectives to go to do other things, kind of stepping away from music. But another one for me is I never like writing music about music. I like writing music that is about something else or inspired by a story or an experience or like something else. So for me, the things I like to do, it's surfing, it's backpacking, it's travel, it's like learning new things, it's reading about science and physics, like it can be anything. But for me, all of that kind of gets put into my music in the sense that like it gives me stories or inspiration or like some cool new technique or something, so that when I then take that back and I'm trying to like create music, it's not for me. I mean, I think there was this movement in like the 70s and 80s in the United States, right? The music was about the music, and it was just like we spend a lot of time obsessing about the structure and the dynamics and all these things with no further end than just the structure or the dynamics of those things. For me, it's like all this other stuff, whether it's being active or having some new experience, new perspective, or just like learning fascinating things about how the world works or people in the world. All of that just gives me something much more interesting and much more universal also. That's like things that other people can relate to then get put into the music and become a part of it.
No, that's actually really important to think about because I don't know if people think like, oh, this composing myth of like, oh, you're at the, or you get an instrument and you're like just fiercely writing down these notes, but no, it's like you. It sounds like you have to take in the world around you, and like you said, that your inspiration and all these different sources to. Sounds like that's what you do to like get the juiciness into the piece that you're creating, and that's really important to think about. We've been talking about like the perspective, the changing this perspective in order to influence your work. So thank you for that push in that direction. Okay, so we're going to go to the next question. It's actually a really good question. How old were you when you wanted to be a composer? Or even when was being a composer a possibility that you entertained? It's a good question. Theresa, would you mind beginning first?
Sure. I'm not sure if I have a direct answer to it, but I remember the first thing I wrote was a song for my cat when I was maybe like 9. I don't know. And yes, I played it for him, and I think he enjoyed it, but I'm not sure.
I was just thinking, like, so you said you were about 9 years old when you created the song. What if you still remember it?
I don't know if I do. I'd have to think about it. I remember it involved his name. I remember, and some power chords probably. It was a real jammer.
Oh, that's so much fun. Thank you, Theresa. Juhi, Midori?
Sure, I'll go. I mean, honestly, I don't think I knew what a composer was really until I was actually here studying, doing a composition degree. I mean, I remember in Hong Kong, like I'd been studying piano for a few years and like learning as many instruments as I could because I loved playing music and kind of used to mess around and just create things. And it wasn't composition. It wasn't me being a composer. Just like, well, I'm playing anyway. Why don't I make some sounds that I like? And I remember applying for undergrad for college, and it's like it'd be nice to do something in music. So I was looking for schools that would let me do like a double degree in computer science and in something in music. And I remember just like looking at college catalogs. I'm like, wow, there's a couple that have this program in composition. I didn't know this thing existed. Maybe this is something you can study. And kind of completely cluelessly, frankly, looking at their requirements. And they're like, you need to put together this portfolio of pieces and like make some recordings. And I think at the time it was mini discs we had to send in. That was like the technology. I don't know if anybody remembers mini discs. But just kind of, I mean, this very random chance event that turned into I sent in a portfolio, like somehow got accepted to a couple of really great schools. And then I don't think I actually figured out what it was to be a composer until I was actually here doing an undergrad degree. I'm like in class with these master composers and other my colleagues and classmates. You're like, oh, okay, this is what we're learning how to do. This is amazing.
No, yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's that's one of the reasons why this is such a great question, because we have all these assumptions of when and what is a composer, and honestly, so often you don't realize until you're in school or no, this is great. Midori, do you have anything? Do you also have like an experience to add to this?
Yeah, so I was 41 years old when I wanted to become a composer. So that's totally, yes, different from a lot of people in the music industry. I decided to become a composer because I realized that I really wanted to create something new and express myself, my authentic self, which I felt I wasn't really fully expressing myself through. I was playing. My degree was in piano performance, classical piano performance, but through playing all the traditional, conventional music, I felt I was not fully expressing myself. I felt a disconnect with my identity or my emotion with the music I was playing, and I really wanted to discover what what it would be like to be a composer, as a way to find more expressive tools to know who I am as a person and also as a musician. So that's me.
Thank you for sharing that, Midori. So, honest, you have your answer. You could be as young as 9, and to whatever age you are currently. So, you want to be a composer? The composers have told you you can literally start at any time. So go for it. Okay, moving on to the next questions. We did Eliana's follow-up question, which was question number 1. We have a question here. Can we hear a little music? I do have to say we don't have live music planned for today. During our short, it's an hour and 15, but it's still pretty short. And I did not request the composers to prepare anything, and if I did, I would get that master license. So hopefully in the future, because if we were to do something live, we want to make sure the composers are fully honored and their music respected. So in the future, thank you so much. We're going to move on to another question. This is a pretty big one. Do you ever get discriminated against or excluded due to your race and gender? Big question. So really could take a moment to think about that, and then again, the questions in the chat. It's also in the Q&A portion. So again, do you ever get discriminated against? I believe this question is in the field of music, or your journey, or excluded due to your race or gender.
I'll go. Yes, and yes. I mean, mostly as a guitarist, because there have been so few females, when I was just going through school and then professionally. So I think it could, I definitely had some very, very challenging experiences, mostly as, being a female in a very, very, male dominated field. That being said, I think it is changing, which is really exciting. So there are a lot of really fantastic female guitarists now, and females of color coming up.
Could you also go into, and this is for all the composers, also go into a bit, maybe a little bit of detail about how you responded to that that discrimination, like how you navigated that?
Well, I guess I can just continue. Therapy, if I'm being honest. Like over 10 years of therapy. I guess music in itself is very therapeutic. So, strangely enough, I would kind of turn back to music for, kind of its therapeutic value. And I think creating music became like the most therapeutic thing actually for me out of anything, because it felt like something that no one else could take away from you, even if they didn't like it, because it's like, okay, well, you might not like, what I'm creating, but at least it's coming from me, and it can't really be, obliterated or, essentially. I mean, it could be, but it'll still exist on some level. So I think that for me was like a really helpful psychological addition.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. It's like when you get to create, it's like something it's incredibly sacred. you're totally right. I think it's something that it can't be taken away from you, like because it's yours. It's a part of your entire being. Yes, thank you for sharing that, Theresa. Juhi or Midori, would you like to share your experiences? Oh.
I'll jump in.
I was like, with them.
I mean, there's so many stories I could tell. I could answer this question for a long time, but maybe I'll pick a couple. So I remember two experiences when I was in graduate school. One was I had gone to a music festival, and I think I've been accepted as an auditor. This was like the first music festival I'd ever gone to, and I hadn't gotten in as a primary applicant, but I got in as an auditor. And I had asked the master composer there some question or the other about a flute piece of his, where I'd been like studying the score and had a question about how it was constructed. And he answered it. I think we were having a meal with like all the composers at a table. And for the rest of the festival, I think it was about 10 days long, I could not convince this man that I was a composer. He was just convinced I must be a flutist. Everybody else there was a guy. Everybody else were composers. It didn't matter until he actually I managed to push and pull and basically force my way into a lesson with him and make him look at my music. And after he saw my music, he's like, "Oh wow, that's fantastic! Now I get it. You're a composer." The entire week leading up to that, it was like, "You're the flutist, right?" "No, I'm at a composition festival. I'm a composer." And I had other experiences with faculty members. I remember once. This was also as a grad student, getting a comment back on a piece that a composer was looking at, that it's too heterophonic. And heterophony means, for anybody who doesn't know, it's basically just a texture in music where you have multiple instruments doing a melody that's almost exactly the same, but they're kind of like different ornaments or slightly different in each voice. And I just remember this comment made me so mad, because if you think about Asian music, how much of Asian music is that is what the music is. It is heterophonic start to end. So you can critique, maybe there were a lot of things that were wrong with that piece. In retrospect, I'm like, okay, I should fix this. And if I were to revise it, I'd go back and I'd do that. But for somebody to say that this piece is just too heterophonic, as if that's not a put down on how many different huge genres of music that exist in the world, just made me absolutely furious. And I think it's, one of these things that I feel like even what you find out people say about you or your music to your face is often very different than what people don't tell you directly. Does that sort of make sense? Mm-hmm. It's there's a sense that we know about, about some cases where you're discriminated indirectly because somebody will say something to you where you're just that's not right. You shouldn't say that. But I think there's also a lot with how our field works, and so much of it is who gives your name to who else, who recommends you for this or that or the other thing. So I think there's kind of maybe a larger conversation that there's definitely not time for today, but kind of that sense about different ways that it happens and different ways that that each of us experience it. Really, it's never always that obvious.
Yeah, it's more covert. It's more under wraps, or you can't see it, but you can definitely feel it. And you have this, this feeling, because, as humans, I think we can understand a lot of things that don't need to be said. Thank you for sharing that, Juhi. Real talk. But in your first example, I'm hearing you, I can relate, you're I need to be heard. You have to shove yourself in front of the person you want to listen to you, and hey, I hear, I exist, listen. Thank you for sharing, Juhi. Midori?
Yes, so my story is that because I am a mother, a lot of people don't think that I am a serious musician or composer. When I say, "Oh, I'm a musician, I'm a composer," or I'm a Japanese taiko drummer, a lot of people assume that I am doing it as a hobby. and I'm very uncomfortable with that. And I don't think there should be any assumption that if you're a mother and whatever you're doing is perhaps because that's your hobby or you're an amateur. I want people to know that there are mother artists who it's their life work.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's very powerful. And I like what you said about just don't assume things because of what I look like or what race, gender, or if I'm a mother or not. Like, it just, oh yes, the fury and like the discomfort and the chills I'm getting up my spine. Our work, your work is so valuable, and people need to hear it. And people are hearing it today, so thank you. I think we have time for just one more question. If I do not get to your question, I apologize. We will make sure it happens in a future program. I do see some returnees. I'm glad that I was able to ask one of your questions. We have this final question from Sky. What genres of music do you normally listen to? Are they the same as the types of music you compose and enjoy playing? And if not, do you think the other genres you listen to influence the music you make and play? Anyone can go. And this will be our final question we answer before we conclude the event. Should I just pick and choose? Theresa, do you mind going?
Sure. I don't know if I have like a genre of music I usually listen to be honest. It's quite varied. But I don't know, I kind of just listen to all types of music and get inspired by what moves me. It could be any genre, but if something kind of affects me in this certain way emotionally, or if I'm really feeling it, I'll just really want to listen to it more and try to figure out why I like it so much or why it moves me, I guess. I know it's kind of a simplistic answer, but that's kind of what I do. And yeah, and I love learning different types of music as well. So that's also always very inspiring for me and for the music I like to write as well. It's always a source of inspiration. Also for like culturally. So I think I referenced before learning the Kujapi. It's like in addition to learning just the instrument, I'm learning all of this cultural context of, this master player in a totally different part of the world from me. And you learn about his family and you're like supporting, it's like, it's a real true exchange on a personal level and love. And that transcends music. So yes.
Thank you, Theresa. No, that's fantastic. Fantastic answer. Thank you. Midori or Juhi?
I can go. So yeah, very similar to Theresa. I listen to all kinds of music, and I'm always searching for different kinds of music on YouTube and other platforms, old and new. But I think these days I'm more attracted to finding new music by living composers, especially women composers. Yes. And I'm always, I get really excited when I find something that I've never listened to, different instrumentation, different technology. Then I get really inspired, and similar to Theresa, I listen to understand why I like it so much.
Woohoo! Fantastic. Yes. Another fantastic answer. Like being exposed to all these different sounds and musics around the world. Like it's the theme here. Juhi, our grand finale answer.
I mean, it's sort of similar. I feel like for me, my listening these days is like split into listening for research, like for listening that is work, and the listening that is just kind of for fun. So the listening that is for work or for research is, you know, a lot of music in our style, and it's a whole lot of music by women composers, because I'm thrilled that's been getting much more mainstream the last few years, but for a long time it really wasn't. As far as the listening just for fun, I'll be honest, these days I'm like so busy and so surrounded by our work all the time. I definitely don't listen to our music for fun anymore. It's like, it is fun, it is inspiring, but I like have to be in a different frame of mind. And when I'm listening just for sheer enjoyment, it's a lot of like, it's classic rock, it's folk music from all sorts of different parts of the world. And I mean, YouTube has been amazing for that. You can find recordings of anything, basically. As Midori said, like old and new, like really, really old recordings all the way back to the early 1900s onwards. It's like Hindustani music, a lot of that's something that I love to listen to, and I'll take a lot of inspiration from it, but I can feel like I'm just relaxing when I'm listening to it, as opposed to feeling like now I'm in work mode and really trying to break it down. So it's a little of everything, I think.
Oh, that's something to be learned, audience. What you create doesn't have to be necessarily what you take in the world. Go and essentially live life is what I'm hearing. Live life, do everything, do anything you want, do it at any time, do it now. It's never too late. Composers, thank you so much for such a phenomenal question. Attendees, everyone here, thank you for your patience. I know it's 3:17. I will be making my closing remarks, and with it along, Samara will put in the chat some useful and helpful links pertaining to the composers, to the organizations, to the next event. So just sit tight for just a minute or so more. So this concludes our third Realms of Courage panel. A huge round of applause for Theresa, Juhi, and Midori for inspiring us with their stories, and of course their words of wisdom today. Thank you for sharing your time with all of us. Please do save the links in the chat below that go directly to their websites. Another shout out to APIC and Samara for ensuring the smooth flow of today's panel, as well as to Kristen and Rob for their amazing work in interpreting our incredible conversation. Woohoo! Woohoo! So once again, thank you to the SFAC, San Francisco Arts Commission, and APIC for supporting the Realms of Courage Celebrating Asian Women Composers project. I'll also like to thank the following organizations for making USAAF 2022, the festival, Generations of Power possible. Thank you again to SFAC, San Francisco Grants for the Arts, California Arts Council, a state agency, the Zellerbach Family Foundation, and Start Small. And audience members, I am grateful to you for taking the time to participate in the Composers panel today. So thank you for supporting Pacific Islander and Asian American arts. For those of you in the Bay Area, let's work together to keep the San Francisco Bay a place for Asian Pacific Islander art to thrive. So please email your district supervisors and tell them why this arts community is important to you and why you want them to continue supporting API art. For everyone, thank you once again for attending this event, and stay tuned for the next Composers panel on Sunday, June 12th at 7 p.m. PT. Please go and sign up for the next panel. We have two more, number 4 and number 5. I bid you adieu. Goodbye. And composers, if you have time to take a photo, that would be amazing. Okay. Thank you, and see you next time.